Well, welcome again, everyone here, everyone watching outside, everyone watching online. I apologise I don't have any PowerPoint today, and I just want to reflect on some of the lessons I think that we've learned along the way. As I said, to go back 20 weeks, where were we? I remember preaching a sermon in the series 5 Things God Uses to Grow Our Faith. And it was the idea that as much as we might have a desire and a want to have certain things happen for ourselves, we want comfort, we want security, we want blessing, as much as we want things, God has a certain desire in his heart for us. And that is we might grow in our faith. We might trust him for the things that he promises. And God uses different means and methods in order for that faith to grow. And we looked at spiritual disciplines, those private disciplines that we get into. And I think the very last week of the series I looked at pivotal circumstances. Sometimes things happen to us, sometimes they're from our doing, sometimes they're just stuff that happens, sometimes they're good, but mostly they're bad. But God uses those things in order to build our faith, to shore up our trust in him. And we looked at a verse like that in your notes there from James, where James says, "Dear brothers and sisters, whenever trouble comes your way, let it be an opportunity for joy. For when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be strong in character and ready for anything." And that's fine, that's nice and theoretical, and that's sort of a nice concept. And then along comes Rona, the coronavirus. That's what we call her in our household, the coronavirus. Along comes Rona. And those pivotal circumstances that we sort of talk about in theory actually happen to all of us all around the world at the one time. And our faith was tested. And we had that circumstance that literally was pivotal. The whole world shifted. And we have to think of things and doing things that we never would have imagined 6 months ago. And we have to make adjustments. And all sorts of stuff happened. And this is a chance that we think through, will our faith grow through this, in this pivotal circumstance that everyone has had to deal with? And as I said in the notes, we have been tested. It is a time of testing. Our faith has been tested because all of us in different ways have had to cope with things that we'd planned for this year, things that we wanted to do or had ideas for. And so many people, unfortunately, had holidays. I mean, I'm disappointed that we didn't get all that we wanted to do in Japan, but I know so many other people put up pictures of where they would have been at this time if their holiday hadn't been cancelled, of all the expectations and things that we'd planned. People had their work situations. Even Bonnie has lost her job. Our faith has been tested. Will we trust God in the middle of this? Will we trust God for who he is, or just what we think he can do for us to get us out of this situation? Will we still trust God even when it's hard? But it is an opportunity, as James says, to have our faith grow, for our endurance to be strengthened, for our character to be developed. It is a time of testing. We have tested some of the theories that we've had about church. Because we often say, and you've probably heard it, that church is not the building. I don't even like to call this place the church, because this is the place we meet. This is the chapel. The church is the people. It's the gathering of the people. That is the church. And the church is not the building. Well, let's test that theory out by not having church building or not being able to meet in it. Can we still be the church when we don't meet at church on a Sunday morning? That theory was tested. That's what I said. I didn't even like to call this a reopening, because it isn't as if we haven't been meeting virtually. But that theory of how we do church without meeting is tested. Are we going to be able to actually do it? Will we still commit to the ideas and values of the church? Or without the scaffolding and structure around us, will our faith just dwindle away? I've said during this time that our mission remains the same. Our methods might be different. Our mission of the church is still to be in a positive way, like the virus is being a negative way, that it's transferable, that it's easy to pass on to people, that other people catch it from us, that there's something so attractive and magnetic about our relationship with God that other people want a part of that as well. We just can't do it in the ways that we used to. So we can invite people to tune into the communion service. We can ask people to watch that YouTube video. We can share and pass on some goodies to people if they're doing it tough. Our mission is the same, to be the church, to be the positive super spreaders. We just have different ways of doing it. And through this, because, and I'm not trying to make light of what it is, because people have been through it, as I said, medically, with employment and everything as well. Rona has hit us in a big way. But it would be a shame not to learn anything through it. Someone said that pain without gain is a shame. If we have gone through the pain of this virus, if we've gone through this upheaval and how it has changed our lives and interrupted our plans, and we've gone through this terrible pain, if we don't learn anything from it, if there's not some sort of gain out of it, that would be a great shame. Because that's what God does best. God does that redeeming work to take something that is bad and make something good out of it. The cross reminds us of the ultimate thing of that. That he's taken the death of his son and made it something that has redeemed us. And back in the Old Testament days, as Joseph was reunited with his brothers, he was able to say, Satan intended what you did for me for evil, but God intended it for good. And that family line of Jesus was able to be continued. So it would be a shame to go through this absolute pain of a season that we're in, and maybe for longer, I don't know. It would be a shame to go through this pain and not learn any lessons from it, not to have some sort of gain out of it. It would be a shame that we don't learn the lesson, so we have to repeat the course. I had to do that once. My first university degree, learning engineering. I got into electrical engineering, but I had to do a mechanical engineering course and I failed it. And I had to go back the next term. Unfortunately, I was given exemption eventually, but it was a pain to have to go back and repeat the course. And it would be a shame for God to have this opportunity to teach us some lessons, but we don't learn, and so we have to repeat it. So let's learn what we can from this time. It would be a pity to waste a good crisis. So on the back of that sheet, on the tails side, I have some lessons to reflect on. 3 questions for reflection that I think it would be good for us to do as individuals and for us to do as a church. The first one is to rethink. If we have to start over again, and in a sense the church is starting over again, what are some things we could start doing that we haven't done before? That maybe there's some things that in this time that you've started to do that we haven't done before, that you haven't done before, that, hey, this is actually really good. I need to rethink some of these priorities in my life. And this crisis has enabled me to do some things that I've never done before, and it's been good. Second thing is to retire. So much stuff has been left behind. So much stuff we couldn't do. And for what I hear from people, there's some stuff that they've retired that they really haven't missed. Maybe it's that busyness. Maybe it's that thing of going out a lot, or just the frantic nature of life. And you've been able to spend some time at home. Time with family. Time with God. And that busyness of life, those things that you used to get into, I don't mind retiring that. And there's some things you leave behind. The third thing is to retain. Maybe you've started to do some things in the last 20 weeks that, hey, actually, that's really good. I'm going to keep that going. Even when we get back to normal, I don't want the normal to be like it was. Whatever the new normal looks like, I want to be able to retain some of those things that I've been doing in my life and keep them going, because I found them to be valuable. And I didn't used to do them, but they are incredibly valuable to me now. I'm thinking of those things through in the life of the church. One of the things that, as I talked about before, is this online presence that we have as a church. Previously, and the numbers, we average about 80 on a Sunday. The time that I've been here anyway. Around that, we get more, we get less, but that's sort of a ballpark figure. And we have the sermon, like it will be today, videoed and put online. And the figures are around the 30 people watch that for a total of roughly 3 hours, with about a 30% retention. That is, by the end, there's only about 30 people, or 30% that will stay to the end. I'll hear a bit of it, but not all of it. No, that's fine. That first week I did the first sermon. There's been 199 views of that sermon. Or 199, I call it devices. So an iPhone, a tablet, an iPad, a computer, a TV, with who knows, 1, 2, 5 people watching that. So the reach is just amazing. And on a regular basis, it's sort of 150, 160 people watching that. Up to 80% retention, sometimes less than that. We've done the live communion service, as I said, from my place or around the place somewhere. There's about 50 or 60 people watch that live, and usually about, by the end of the week, 200 people that watch that. Or 200, again, devices. So there's people from everywhere that have this reach. Way more than actually meet here physically in the building. I know there's a church at St. George that's using our material. There's people interstate that are tuning in on a regular basis. So we have a reach online far beyond what we get here. So I think we have to rethink what we do with an online presence, and to be able to put resources into that, to reach out, to be super spreaders of the gospel out there. I find that quite amazing, actually, that there's that sort of reach. Unfortunately, what it does, and this is the challenge for us, I think, this morning, is it's so easy. It's so easy. I nearly said in this Sunday coming back, you should wear what you've been wearing the last 20 weeks. Let's have a pajama Sunday. Let's have a slippers day. You don't have to get dressed up. You can wear what you've been wearing. As I said, I have to get dressed up every week, except the week that I didn't wear the long pants and everyone saw my hairy legs. So it's easy. It's dead easy to do that. You don't have to get ready early. You don't have to put your lippy on. You don't have to do anything with your hair. You get up and ready to go. You don't even, because it's recorded, pre-recorded, you don't have to do it at the time. You can do it at the end of the day. You can do it at the end of the week. You can be doing something else. And I've heard people, not from this church, but they sort of put it on in the morning, put it on in the background, making breakfast, having a great time with their family. It's so easy. It's so easy to invite people to church. Hey, here's the YouTube link. That sermon was really good on Sunday. I thought you might benefit from it. It's so easy. It's great. And people have done that. And that's tremendous to be able to share. It's so easy. The downside is it's so easy. As I said, there's not the structure and the scaffolding around our lives. There's no roster that you have to be on to come to church. So you can choose whether you do that or not. You don't have to get ready and get up and go. You can just do it whenever or just put it on in the background. But the danger of that is that we're not engaged with it. We're not really focused on it. We're not really getting in and wrestling with that, letting God speak to us. There's no sacrifice we have to make for it. We just rock up and, I'm not naive enough to know that all of those 199 that view are really there and really with me. And that's the danger. That it is so easy. There's a story in the Old Testament where the nation of Israel were in a really difficult time. There was a plague that had come on them as well. And God had told David what he was to do. He was to go to this certain place, a guy called a ruiner, I think. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But God says to David, I want you to go there. I want you to make a sacrifice. Go to this specific place. And I want you to make a sacrifice there. This is a test for you, David. This is what I want you to do. So King David comes, and I guess with all his entourage and everything, rocks up to this guy's place. And he sort of sees him coming with all the entourage and King David. Everyone knows who he is. And he says, what are you doing here? He says, I need to make a sacrifice here on your threshing floor where you do the wheat and pop it up and get the chaff out and all that. Need to make a sacrifice. I need oxen. In order to sacrifice, I need wood. And I need to take over this place. And the guy says to him, sure, David, look, you're the king. Have at it. Go for it. Anything you want. I'll give you the oxen. There they are in the paddock. You can go and get them. Here's some wood. Been chopping some for a barbie, but here it is. The threshing floor. You can have it. It's all yours. Doesn't cost you anything. Great. Because if you own a store or something like that, and the Prime Minister comes or a restaurant, hey, Prime Minister eats at your restaurant, or he buys things from there, the publicity shop, put that up, that's all you want. So a ruiner thinks, with the king coming, that's great, and offers him, have that, won't cost you anything. David had a lot of stuff against him. But one thing he did know, he knew what a sacrifice was. We read this passage in 1 Samuel 24. Ruiner says, I'll give it to you, your majesty, and may the Lord accept your sacrifice. But the king replied to Araunah, no, I insist on buying it, for I will not present burnt offerings to the Lord that have cost me nothing. So David paid him 50 pieces of silver for the threshing floor and the oxen. And David built an altar there to the Lord and sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings. The Lord answered his prayer for the land, and the plague on Israel was stopped. Another version in the Message, I like it, David says, I will not make a sacrifice to the Lord of that which isn't a sacrifice to me. It's cost me nothing in the first place. So of all that David had against him, he had this going for him, that he knew what was pleasing to God and what was a real sacrifice. You only get out of something what you put into it. And the danger of this season, when it's so easy And if we have to go back to lockdown, I don't know. I hope we don't. I hope we can just, it's onward and upward from here. But if we go back to it, the danger is when it's so easy, when it seems so hard to log on to the internet or be ready at 9 o'clock, to listen to that sermon, to carve out that time, to sacrifice the time that we'd rather be spending somewhere else or doing something else. When it's so hard to make the sacrifice of time and energy and effort to put our mind on that, to tune in, to see what God is saying, to pray, God, what are you talking to me today about? When it's so hard and you have to make that sacrifice, if you don't, if you're not putting into it, you won't be getting anything out of it. And David knew that. It was offered to him on a plate. You can have everything, it doesn't cost you anything. And he says, if it doesn't cost me anything, it's not a sacrifice. And it's not going to be something that's pleasing to God. So I want to encourage you in this season, in this time that's ahead of us. Put the effort in yourself. I know it's hard. I've walked some people through the internet stuff and happy to continue to do that. But put the effort in yourself. Because it's so easy without those structures around us, without the things in place that are normally there, the people around to encourage us, the regular times where we meet, whether it's a small group or some sort of group, a KYB group, or coming here on a Sunday. Without that around us, it's easy to let faith shrivel away. We don't put anything into it. We don't make a sacrifice. We don't count the cost. And faith can shrivel up. So put the effort into it and we will get something out of it. You will benefit. The church will benefit. The world will benefit. As I said, as we become super spreaders of the gospel, because God is working in us and we can pass that on to other people. So let me encourage you in that today. I know it's a difficult time. I know people are going through some hard times. It's either busier for everyone or it's not as busy for other people. As I said, the expectations are different because what we planned for the year hasn't eventuated. Hopefully things will get back to a new normal, but hopefully in the middle of that, you've learned some lessons about trusting in God, about developing your faith, about being close to Him, about being the church when the church building is not the centre. Maybe in this season going forward, the home will be more and more important, just like the early church. Just like the early church when they didn't have a church building, they met in Solomon's Colonnade, which was a big, wide open space area. Sort of, I always imagine it like in front of Suncorp Stadium there, where they could just big crowds gather. But then they met regularly in homes. Maybe that's going to be more of a focus for us. Maybe that online presence with Zoom meetings or a mixture of Zoom and in person will be important. Maybe there'll be online resources that we can tap into, that we reach, as I said, a couple of hundred people, possibly more, in all sorts of places. And there's ways that we can use the gifts that we have to support that. I'm not sure what it will look like in the future, but it's good to think as a church, to ask those questions, to rethink what we do, retire some things that we really don't need to have, and retain the things that are really good and that we're really focused on. So let's continue to pray for each other and support each other in this time. Thank you again for your patience and your grace. It is a different season we're in, but I think as we do it together, we can support each other and we'll come out better for it on the other side. Let's pray. Lord, it is good to be back together. It's good to be able to meet and see people face to face, in person again. Lord, save us from just this easy approach that we don't need to make a commitment, we don't need to make a sacrifice, we don't need to put things into place, but our faith shrivels up in the process. Help us to make the effort and to know that there is a price to be paid, there is a cost to be had. Ultimately, it's your grace, but Lord, we need to work to bring that endurance and our faith to grow. Lord, uphold us at this time. Help us not to become weary and just plugging away in this difficult time. Help us to know what it is to be in a church family that is a real family, that supports each other in good times and bad. Help us to keep our eyes focused outwards so that other people will know this as well. There's so many other people that don't have communities of any sort, let alone a community of faith that can help them at this time. Help us to be that for the church, to always looking outward as well as inward and upward to you. Oh Lord, you're a good God. And even though we were far away from you, Lord, you've put things in place for us to be brought into relationship with you. And we thank you at this time when there's so much other uncertainty in the world that we have this security and this hope in you that, Lord, keeps us anchored, keeps us on track in these difficult times. So thank you for the opportunity to be together today. Thank you for being in our presence, that we can be reunited together and with you in this special way today. We give you all praise and thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.